All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Aaron here, back once again from the Remote Closing Academy podcast. And in this episode, I have a little bit of a treat for you. Actually, a bit of a treat for you. And that is because we are bringing on our first female guest onto the podcast. And this is someone, she's actually had a good amount of experience in the online, business world in general. She actually used to be an attorney, transitioned more into more like sales type roles. And, she's going to break down her entire experiences. And there's a lot of little pieces within this interview that I think could really help someone that is just getting started as well. So don't hear, she's been in this space for a while and think, oh, I'm like, there's no way I can ever get to that point. Just take it from the standpoint of, okay, we're going to hear the entire story from beginning to end of how she got to where she is and some of the little pieces along her journey that helped her get to that point. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Tash, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Woo! I'm super excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome, and thanks for waking up a little earlier to get this recorded. So, before we jump too deep into Remote Closing Academy and experience there, we'll talk a ton about that. But I'm always super curious to just rewind the clocks a little bit. Before remote closing, before you even know that Cole Gordon was a person, right? What how did you? I guess what were you doing before all that?
So I guess my whole life, I've been an entrepreneur. So I've been somehow involved in sales or, but not the specific of tactics or techniques or mindset, just like an idea of, hey, we're always selling, we're always communicating stuff, we're always pitching our products. So I'm actually an attorney. I went to law school, and then I have an MBA here in the United States. I'm originally from Mexico. And I started my career when I was 21. And I remember that day so vividly because I told my dad. My dad happens to be a medical doctor and very successful guy. Sent me to one of the most expensive schools in law in Mexico. And then one day I say, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur. And he was like, no, absolutely no.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, why not? And I swear I saw a little tear in his eye, and he said, you're going to be a salesperson. That's what you're going to be. And I was like, well, I'm going to be a businesswoman,
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you're going to be a salesperson. And I was like, wow, like that was the first moment in my life where I had a connotation about sales.
Mm-hmm.
And by connotation, I mean, if the audience doesn't really know what that means, it's like the meaning that you give to words or situations, not the meaning that they have, but the meaning that we give them. So that was my first approach to sales, and it was very negative, right? And I was like, wow, that doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. So anyway, I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to ignore him. And so I started my first company, and we did very well. We started selling to government, and that was kind of like my first thing. Long story short, after a few years of entrepreneurship in my country, I fall in love with an American guy, and I come to the United States. And we go to Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, which is known by, having the smartest people in the world and these like cool careers with Google, Amazon, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Right. So I get an offer from Google. And it was like, I don't know, I think it was like $19 an hour. And I was like,
to work with Google.
Yeah, I was like, that doesn't seem like Google. Like, that's insane. Especially with the prices in the Bay Area. I was like, no, this is like ridiculous. So, I was just like, I don't know if I can take it. I know I'm new in the United States, so I have to start like from zero. And so I just asked them if they can hold on to that offer. And they were like, yeah, sure. Like, there's not that many people like you in the United States. Like, you're bilingual, you're highly educated. So yeah, we'll hold on to that offer. And then I had this like sketchy call from a company, just like, hey, it seems like you have some like managerial experience. We might want to give you an opportunity to interview for a position here. And at that point, I'm already like filing divorce with my husband. Things didn't go very well. and I'm tired, exhausted. And my ex-husband looks at me and he's like, hey, you don't have another choice. Just go there.
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa, whoa, okay, sure. So I ended up going to this interview. It's a sales position in the financial industry. And that was my first approach to actually selling, like to be in a sales role.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome.
Nice.
I mean, you know what the sales industry is. It's tough, right? It's a lot of like no's and resiliency, but I had a really good mentor. So I did that for a little bit, and then I'm still an attorney, right? So I still went out on my own way to kind of figure out the industry. Because when you work for a company, they're always going to tell you like they're the greatest company, right? And I think as a salesperson, that's actually one of the hardest things that we have to do. It's feel very comfortable with what we're selling with the company, uh, to just do a great job, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's part of being a salesperson. You're kind of also doing a little bit of due diligence in the company, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of did my own thing. I went back into consulting. I consulted for super high net worth individuals. Um, but it was really tough to work with them. And so even though the money was good, it was like, well, this is really not scalable. I'm not sure what to do. And at the same time, it was all figuring out the American system, like you're in a new culture, I'm by myself. So that's a little bit of my story. And then I've been kind of going like from job to job in the purpose of understanding the industry. So what
Yeah.
industry I'm part of? I'm actually part of the life insurance industry, right? And I really like life insurance. And this is not a commercial or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I really like the life insurance industry for three reasons. One, people have no idea what you can actually achieve with life insurance. They think it's just for protection. And in reality, it's one of those vehicles for tax mitigation
Hmm.
that very few people understand. So, as the financial and attorney nerd that I am, I was absolutely fascinated, like absolutely fascinated. And then also in terms of just basic protection, what most people don't understand is that 80% of the wealth is actually inherited. And it's not because people build big businesses or they were super wealthy, successful, etc. It's actually through life insurance. So those families that do not have life insurance, well, they're pretty much setting up their next generations for not having money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I really got very passionate about it and I just wanted to understand like more about it. And eventually I realized that there's so many cool things out there, but it's really hard to build a business around them.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally, after, a few years, I started with RCA and now I'm probably going to get a little bit more into RCA. But basically, what I found in RCA, it was that, well, first of all, what is going on with Cole and his brain? I mean, he's so structured.
Yeah.
Cole is like a left brainer turned into a right brainer by need or by purpose.
Yeah.
He's a remarkable guy, and everything he has put together is so well structured. So that's the first thing that really, really got my attention about RCA, just like how well structured, how well put in it was. And then just kind of going through the entire thing and just realizing that it's not rocket science, right? It's just like there is a method, there are techniques, there are tactics, and you just have to follow. And the hardest part, I think, and you tell me what you think about this one, but
Yeah.
I think the hardest part about sales is just staying long enough to get really good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's like, I've been in like the sales, like online world for, the past like 7 or 8 years. And I think like, not only in my own personal experience, but friends that I have within the industry, like we all started we all were really bad, like, and it took like 2 or 3 years to really even like understand, okay, like this is like proper communication, this is how you get that idea across, and get someone to like be on your same side of the fence and be able to sell whatever that thing is, right? Whether it's a course or just like a simple methodology, you actually, before we jump too deep into the RCA stuff, you said a couple things that I think a lot of people could get some like value out of and from like your own personal experience. But because I come from my dad was in the military for 40 years. So, when I had that initial conversation with him, I went to college for a year and I was like, I just don't feel inside. I was like, I just don't feel like this is for me. Right. I don't like textbooks. I didn't like school or anything like that. I was like, I'm going to do this YouTube thing. Cause that's, where I was spending my time and, making videos on the internet. And he was like, you're going to what? You're going to make videos and people are like, how are you going to even make money from that? So, with your experience of, with your dad and like, him saying, what do you mean? Like you're going to get into sales? Like what was happening within your head and how did you make that initial jump to say like, okay, I know that like my dad's told me what to do for this amount of time and he has my best interest in mind, but what made you like take that decision to take that leap of faith?
I think it hasn't actually gone away. It's like it's a thing that you have to do every single day, and I think that's one of the things that nobody really explained to me before, and I wish somebody did. Like every single day we have doubts. Every single day we go through different processes of just like understanding what they're doing. And it's really funny because in sales, sometimes you make a lot of money and sometimes you don't. And those days that you don't, you're like with my dad in my head, like, oh, you're not going to make money. Right. Yeah, so it's like, exactly. Damn, like I really have to fight those thoughts, those ideas. And of course, my dad, I'm very fortunate because I know this is not everybody's situation, but my dad definitely has my best interest in mind. We love each other. We're like a great family. We have our arguments, of course, but the fact is that our parents also know that life is hard. That they're just trying to make it as easy as they can for us, and they're trying to give us the best advice. But at the same time, it's like they are from a different generation. I don't even understand people that are 10 years younger than me. So I don't expect them to really fully understand what's going on in my generation. Like I'm actually terrified of being a mother. Like I get it, it's like a whole new world. There's so many things out there. Like, yeah, when somebody tells me like, hey, I'm gonna do this YouTube thing, I'm like, okay, that's awesome, but like full time. Like, but like forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just for everybody out there who parents, friends, family say no. Well, you can always stay there. You can always stay there and then explore that path, which is still not going to be easy, right? Like nothing is easy. Or you can try to do what you want and find some fulfillment in that. I think we're obsessed with the idea of finding happiness when the whole point is actually being happy in the finding.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, like, with especially with like TikTok and all these like shorter form platforms, like there's a lot of people that sell this like really quick, like, you can make a ton of money in a short amount of time. Right. And when people don't make, they're able, when they're not able to quit their job in a week, right, they get discouraged and they're like, oh, well, kind of like what you said, right? It takes a good amount of time to see success in anything. So, to be always fed that short term, like, oh yeah, you can make a bunch of money in a small amount of time. It's just, people get discouraged way too quickly, So with you too, cause you transitioned into a bunch of different, in different avenues with starting your own business and then, moving to, to San Francisco. Why do you think that is? Like, was it from a standpoint of like just always wanting to grow or just back to what you said of just learning new industries and just getting really, really deep in and understanding each of them really intimately?
I think there's a lot of things in between. First, I want to just kind of touch a little bit on what you just last said.
Sure.
About the time frame. Just you said 2 to 3 years is usually what it takes just to understand communication, right? but also sales and especially entrepreneurship, it's a mindset game. It's so hard. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and people out there just think like, oh, it's just gonna happen in 1 year or something. And I think for me, I'm a very anxious person, you know, but for me, one of the things that scares me the most about what we're seeing out there with TikTok and other influencers and people selling courses and all these things is that first, it's not just the lie that these people are putting out there, but what scares me the most is the lack of critical thinking,
Mm.
perspective, and context of people themselves to believe that. It's like they're so desperate. They're so desperate that they choose to believe that horrible, terrifying lie that you're actually going to make it in the next month, 2 months, 6 months. It's not going to happen that way, right? And then they're like, well, they're all scammers. Well, they're liars for sure. They're doing marketing, but where is your critical thinking? Where's that context? Where's that perspective? Dude, reach out to your friends, like analyze, think about it. Like before I joined RCA, I mean, I saw Cole Gordon's like programs like several times,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the reason why I didn't join immediately, it was for many reasons, obviously, but the first one was like me. I wasn't thinking, how good is Cole? How good is the program? I was thinking, how much time do I have? How much time do I have to dedicate to this program? And really, what is my commitment with myself to become really good at sales? Is
Mm-hmm.
this what I want to do and why? And then once I had those answers clear, then I was able to say, it's not going to be his fault, right? It's going to be my fault. It's
Mm.
going to be my commitment. And I'm not saying I'm the best person in sales at all. I'm just saying I have an extremely good work ethic, which is the first thing that you should always have. I always try to have critical thinking. It fails sometimes. Look, I got married, right? So, so
Can't
it
be
can't always
100%.
be perfect. I
Yeah.
can't always be perfect. But no, but all jokes apart, you know, you definitely have to have some context, perspective into the decision making process. And to everybody out there, I hope this really reaches a lot of people. TikTok, social media, anything that comes new or that it's here already. Marketing is one thing, and you have to be able to filter, you know, especially even I'm going to talk a little bit about my industry. You know, a lot of people tell me like, oh, life insurance, it's just BS. It's like, it doesn't exist, they never pay, blah blah blah. What's the guarantee? Every guarantee in life, guys, it's about us. If you buy something and you don't read the contract, then there's no guarantee. You know, if you buy something and you don't know how to use it, there's no guarantee. If you don't commit to it, there's no guarantee. So the guarantee in life is that there are products and services, amazing, out there. Sometimes you're very lucky and you're able to see them, right? Through marketing or through a friend or something like that. You're very lucky and you're able to see them. But the only guarantee in life is that you know what you're getting into and you're committed to it.
Just on the social media stuff, because one of my main roles with Cole is just posting on social media, posting and analyzing trends and making sure everything's working well. And it's I go through a ton of the comments, and it's crazy to see how many, like, you can tell someone's mindset based on the comments like that people leave, right? Because a lot of people will say, like, if they're automatically attacking something as a scam, there's a great chance that they've just been conditioned that way in, like, let's say buying some sort of other program, or having these negative experiences. And that's the same thing with everything, right? If someone comes into and sees an offer that they don't really have a ton of experience with, or they have had negative experiences with, it's always going to be that preconceived notion of like, oh, this is a scam, but I agree.
Something, Aaron, just in regards to that, because
Sure.
this was not RCA was not the first class course that I joined.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to sue somebody in the real estate world, because we all have heard about these stupid programs that they sell you like $30,000 and you're gonna get it back in blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
You never get it back. You never
Well,
learn
first of all,
shit.
that's illegal.
First of all,
I mean, you
that's
as a lawyer, yeah, you know that
yeah.
you can't
No,
make
as a
income
lawyer,
claims.
I was like, guys, you're coming down.
Yeah.
Like, you're coming down, you know?
I don't want to get sued by like a legit lawyer. That does not sound fun.
That does not sound fun, but all these other industries, like that's why I say you have to have some critical thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have it when I started. I didn't know what the American system was about to offer me or not. So I just thought all those things were normal. And I'm not saying it as an immigrant, I'm saying it just as a young entrepreneur. So every single young entrepreneur, and maybe not so young, but new entrepreneur, they have to know that there's ways to vet these classes. Don't buy anything that's like $30,000 and you're going to get it back in the first 3 months because you're going to find your house and flip it and fix it and da 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 da. So not only that, they call you and they upsell you for like $90,000 program. And then you call them and there are all different entities. They're all different entities. So you cannot actually sue them back. So yes, there's a lot of scams out there, like a lot of them. But another thing that really I really like about RCA, and I don't know the exact term, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you're registered somewhere where it actually makes it legal to sell
I
courses.
don't know the specifics of that.
Okay, I
Yeah.
do because when I was going through it, and I don't know the name, I just remember, and I was like, "Hey, that's awesome," right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely legit things out there. RCA is one of them. So I'm more than happy to share my experience. And if anybody's considering sharpening their sales skills, with they should, because it's going to be useful everywhere. Even in your personal life, right?
I think that's a great transition because that was gonna be one of my next questions. Is with you coming from a ton of your experience, because we have like people that come into RCA like all walks of life, right? Like people, whether they are a previous entrepreneur or maybe they working at, great example, someone actually on the RCA team. She worked at Disneyland for like 4 years straight. And she came in and now she's, a team lead and she's super high within the company, is crushes it. So all walks of life coming within the program. You specifically, having the background that you do, what were some of the things that attracted you to it, just to initially get you interested and make you want to look more into like, okay, what is this RCA thing?
Well, the fact that sales is so vital in the business world. And when I say business, I don't mean you have to be the business owner. You don't have to be the entrepreneur. You just have to be in a business. If you work, if you have a job, you're in business, right? So if you want to move forward in your career, if you want to move forward in your company, or even if you just want to understand how people are able to sell something, an idea, a concept, and you're not, right? Then you have to always think about sales. There's no other avenue. There's nothing else out there. People, like engineers, think like, oh, develop the best product. No, dude, somebody has to sell it. Right? So I mean, I do come from different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, sales are the fuel, the oxygen of every single company, and everybody is selling all the time. If you're not selling, it's because you're not growing. And the moment that you're competing for the same role with somebody else, it's going to make the difference whether you know how to sell yourself or not. And something I actually realized, while going through some of these calls, trainings with RCA, is that people don't listen. Seriously, like this is mind blowing. Okay, people don't listen. So in sales, that's like one of the biggest skills, right? Like
Yeah.
you're an active listener. People don't listen. People don't listen what other people are saying. They're listening to whatever they want. They're listening to whatever they serves them immediately, not even like in a good way. And so that's very scary. I think everybody should be actually practicing sales because it includes so many different skills that improve the quality of your relationships, that improve the quality of your own life. Communication is what makes us different from animals, and we're not really taking advantage of it, right? The fact that you're talking to me right now, and I'm talking to you and we're listening, and you have to listen what I'm saying just to ask the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Like in even our personal conversations, like, oh, I'm just gonna finish like listening and then I'm gonna tell him what I need to tell him, right? It's like,
Yeah.
dude, communication. So sales for me, when I decided to do it like officially, was not just about the techniques. Also with RCA, it was also about the community. As I said before, I struggle with anxiety, so community mindset support is huge. I don't know if I'm the only female in the audience in your show that will admit that, right? Because it's also very vulnerable, but it's tough. It's tough, and you need that community. I thought RCA was like an avenue to get to those people. And then of course, then it was like, okay, now I'm here. Let's look at the class. And again, it was like, oh, Cole, what planet are you from? It's like so perfectly together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's talking back. I think you mentioned a couple minutes ago too about like how Cole's brain works, and it's like it's really interesting because we have a meeting with him basically every day, and like it's constantly hearing from him and just learning from just the little things that he says, even like because a lot of, and he admits this too, like a lot of the stuff that he talks about is like is it's really good stuff, but it's like it's something that he's learned and then like translating it in his own way. And it's just really interesting how he kind of puts it and makes it sound so much more, not only more interesting, but like he's one of the first sales trainers that I've met that like I can understand what he's saying, and it's not like antiquated old school stuff, that it's like, oh, they said that they need to think about it. Here, use this one line and then you're going to get past it, right? It's not communication at that point, it's just like they're going to say this and you're going to say this.
So actually, let me tell you something about Cole. This is actually for everybody's records in RCA. I admire Cole a lot. So in law school, I took a class that it's a class specifically to teach you logic. Okay. And logic is very important in law because it's the way that you create law, right? It has to make sense with every single other piece of regulation out there, and it has to flow. That's what this class has. It has logic in a way that's why everybody can understand it, because it has logic. So it's like if A, then B, then C, then D, then A, so it really makes more sense. It's not just like, oh, he has all this information. Yes, he has all this information, but the way that he puts it together, it's very, it's logic. It's logic. It's logical. Yeah. Sorry. It's logical. So,
yeah, that makes a ton of sense because it's not just a bunch of information. It's structured in the right way. And trust me, when we look at some of the content we put out there too, it's like we have like Excel spreadsheets and Google documents. Like you've gone through his stuff. He lives by Google documents. It's hilarious. So overall, like you touched on some of the pieces of the program. Like what apart from like the community and the training, like what were some of your, I guess, like favorite parts, or I guess most beneficial parts for you within your journey?
The current position I have, just to clarify, it's a position where the company, they have a really, really good script. They have a very specific methodology to do marketing and sales. So in reality, I wasn't able to really apply many of the things that I learned with RCA. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm working for a Fortune 600 company. Okay. So obviously they're going to have a lot, like a very specific program. What I've learned also, because I was in this transition between RCA, when I started RCA, I was in a transition with a registered investment advisory firm, and then this Fortune 600 company. Okay. And the RIA, the registered investment advisory firm, they were small. And what I learned there is that I actually offer that. And that was part of my win post, right? I actually offered them to help them create that system for their super small firm. And when I say that system, I'm going to talk about like what RCA actually taught me that I didn't have time to implement, but it's definitely there for somebody that wants to do it, right? So I think I can see it because of my background from two different perspectives. One is as an entrepreneur, and the other one is as an employee, as a salesperson. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, you realize that first, your salespeople, your company needs a system, right? They definitely need to understand how to communicate with people. What are the techniques? What do they have to do just to get them in the door, right? Just to get them in the door. And then once they're there, it's like, how do you actually make sure that you're listening, understanding your client, and that you're able to provide a solution and how to communicate that effectively? So now they are interested in actually buying, because everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I learned, as an entrepreneur, like, hey, wow, this system. And so when I started looking for a job before this Fortune 600 within RCA, I was thinking, I guess the biggest challenge for salespeople, and I've lived this for the last few years, is finding that company that you can work for that has those systems,
Mm-hmm.
right? That has that script, that has that marketing to get in, that, so that has the product. So a little bit more advanced, it might not necessarily be it is for everybody, like literally for everybody, but I think it's more valuable for somebody who already has a product or a service that are selling, right? And now they just need the sales part. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as a salesperson, what did I learn? Well, I learned so much, right? I learned that that part of those things that you already do in a sale, but you're not like focused in those, like
Yeah.
active listening and understanding the product to the T, to know exactly what you can offer them, if they need it, how they need it. So I think you can learn from different perspectives. Obviously, it's going to be based on your background. But I also met a lot of people that they were trying to become coaches, right?
Mm.
And that they had something like a program or something. And then they themselves were trying to learn it, work with more successful people in their industry to see what they were doing, right? And eventually migrate to their own thing. So I think that was actually pretty cool. I'm not saying I'm opposed to that idea yet, right? But for now, this is I'm just following like a different path. Like at some point, I was just like, I should be selling Remote Closing Academy because I'm so obsessed with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's, I think, the important part about it too is, I, even with, some of the old offers that I've been on, and even some that I've sold in the past, and whether I say I'm ashamed to say that I did, but a lot of the stuff that some of the stuff I've sold in the past, I knew that it worked, but maybe presented it in a little bit of a different way that made it, how do I put this without sounding terrible? Is I knew that the offer was good, but I knew that it was for a very specific person. But when I was able to get around, something like RCA, where I believe in it, right? I know that it helps people. I know that it can change lives. Like, I mean, getting on podcasts like this, like it's really amazing to see how, a course, right? And a program and a community is able to help people change their lives. You know what I mean? So being really sold on the product yourself is like step number one in being able to sell it. So I guess the next part that I'm curious on, because you kind of touched on it too, and within the win post, a lot of times when people listen to these episodes, they're like, well, what are the wins, right? Like how much money did you make? Things like that. We don't have to touch specifically on the money aspect of it, but what are some of the just some of the successes that you've seen so far since jumping into RCA?
So just in terms of the money, I'm starting a new job in this 600 Fortune 600 company, and the money is there, right? So I have all these mentors and coaches, and they're making like 100,000, 200, 300, 600 a year, right? And something that's important, and we go back to probably the beginning of this call, is that you cannot expect to make that money when people have been in the industry for 7 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? all you have to do is understand that you can actually get there.
Mm.
And I think that's very important, because yes, it's very cool to think like, oh yeah, I can make 15K, 50K a month. Sure. If you have the skills, if you have the right company, if you have the mindset, because it just doesn't happen overnight,
Mm.
right? And so in my win post, I actually posted that when I first worked with this company, this is like 5 years ago, every single month from day one, I was making 25K. Okay. But I do want to tell everybody, this is like before COVID.
Yeah.
Things were very, very different, right? In the remote world, Aaron, and you know this probably better than me, people are flaky. People are like, oh, I cannot hear by. Okay?
Exactly.
It's crazy. The world is crazy out there. People are really willing to sacrifice their integrity,
Hmm.
right? So you have to be even better. So, it's like, it's that idea of like, things are not getting better, things are getting worse. So if you're not yet working on that skill, in the sales skill, in the mindset skill, forget about the money. You can't
Yeah.
think about money when you are not even prepared to survive in this after COVID economy, right? So yeah, I mean, money is there. And by the way, just touching about money. Okay, guys, the wealthiest people in the world are only three kinds. Okay. One, business owners. Two, investors that already had money and started investing. Three, salespeople. It's crazy, right? So it's like you're either a business owner or a CEO, an investor, or a salesperson. So if you're average like me, right? If you try everything, but you cannot wear 40 hats the same day at the same time, sales is pretty much your other best option and the foundation to actually get you where you want to be. It's the foundation. So yes, money will come, but you first have to build that. And sales is definitely the industry that will never change, right? It's like recession proof, COVID proof, end of the world proof. And I mean, because everything else can change. I heard this like many years ago, like successful people do not ask themselves when they're creating a company or a product, what is it going to change in the next 10 years? They actually ask themselves, what is not going to change in the next 10
Mm.
years? Right? And that is sales. Like, it's not going to change. It's not going to go away. The skill set is always going to be needed. It's going to make the difference between ourselves and artificial intelligence, pretty much.
Hmm.
That's the difference. So forget about the money if you can for 1 second. I know that's the most appealing part, but it's the fact that it's bulletproof. It's always going to be there, and it's definitely one of the careers that can make you make more money. I cannot wait to come back with my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, I actually made money as a
Yeah.
salesperson."
Yeah,
It's gonna be
that's
exciting.
exactly. It's the same thing. And I know you mentioned it a while ago, but with my dad too, it's always not that, like, I mean, obviously I love my dad, and like he lives like super close to me, so we see each other a lot. But it's almost like that. I don't know if this is the same with you, but it's like almost like a playful competition. Like, I'm not, it's like, Dad, I hate you. Like, I'm going to succeed because you thought that I was going to fail. Like, it's not like that, right? It's like, it's more of, I can say that like a lot of what, his motivations and, him maybe being a little bit doubtful at first was as a huge motivation to me, because I was like,
I think
I'm going
that's
to be
a
able to do
guy's
it.
thing.
Is
I
it?
think that's a man thing. Yeah, yeah.
All right, I guess
Like,
we'll, yeah. I guess I'll have to ask somebody else on when they come on here and see if it's the same.
yeah. No,
So
but you know what? I surround myself with male friends, and I'm telling you, it's a thing for you guys,
a
and it's
competition, I guess.
exciting. You guys are players, you guys are hunters, you guys are like competitors, right?
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the male side that we have to bring out as women.
Mm-hmm.
But no, for me and my dad is more like, I just want to have a peaceful life. And my dad also just wants me to have a peaceful life.
Mm-hmm.
He knows life is not easy. And even if I were practicing as an attorney, it's still sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still sales. Like
It's
people say,
just who
like, oh,
you're selling. Like who
if
do you have to
you were an
sell?
attorney, you would make so much money. No. Like I know a lot of attorneys and they're broke because they don't know
Mm,
how to sell. Because now you have two jobs. You have to be really good at what you do and then also really good at sales, right? So
mm,
sales is the foundation for independent professionals, for small businesses, for big companies, for people that want to get to the C-level executive sort of thing. They're selling themselves. So that's why I'm so obsessed with RCA, because people think it's to get to a monetary goal. No, it's to get further in life in anything and everything that you're doing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And with a lot of stuff that we do in marketing too is we're constantly trying to figure out like how, because like you said, it is the most appealing part, right? But it's also like kind of juggling with what is legal and what is not, right? So a lot of like our marketing conversations these days have been like, how do we create that environment without talking so much about the money and more about the impact that it can make and learning these high value skills that you never have to.
I don't think you can, to be honest with you, because people are, so there's like different areas of our brains, right? And in the first area is the area of survival. Okay. And if you don't fulfill that area, then you cannot really pass the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are in the survival mode, which 99% are, then you have to fulfill that one first. And the way that you do it is by saying, hey, this is how much money you're going to make. And
Mm-hmm.
now they feel like, oh, okay, if I can make that much money, right, then my needs are covered. My survival needs are covered, right? That's why marketing is always about like just cover that survival like instinct, that
Yeah.
immediate need. And then that's why people are like, well, that's not exactly what's going on. Dude, well, it happens for other people.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
But yeah, it's really hard, I think, because you have like to cover people's survival modes. And again, this is actually really cool that we're talking about it here, because after COVID, this survival thing is super like messed up right now.
Mm.
People got used to survive with like nothing in their houses, just like almost in a cave for
Yeah.
2 years. They're thinking, I don't know what they're thinking actually, but it feels like people feel like they can stay in that same state for another 2 or 3 years, 10 years, 20. It's not. And things are still getting worse before they come back, but there's no going back to normal. But a lot of people are like frozen, or they don't want to take action. And so you have to literally address like the most basic fundamental survival needs, because that's the mode they're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And until they don't actually see what's going on and they're like in panic mode, absolutely panic mode, they won't react. They're not reacting. They don't see it. People don't have money. That's a lot of people don't have money. I should not say people don't have money. A lot of people don't have money, or they're not understanding how to invest it in themselves to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that 10K a month works fine. And there's people making that. So it's always honest. That's the first thing, right? Like if you know that other people are making that kind of money thanks to your program, that's always honest.
Yeah, one thing that you just said, because this is a great transition to one of the last questions here, but you just said, I don't know exactly the quote, but people need to learn that they need to invest in themselves in order to get further. So what would you say for someone that isn't used to that? They're like, oh, I need to hold money to my chest. What if there's another COVID tomorrow and the recession and inflation and all this stuff? Like, what would you say to that person that's just a little scared?
I think context is so important. I think perspective is so important. So usually when I get asked a question like this, I want to give different options,
Sure.
right? So we're all in a different situation, right? Like if you have $5,000 in your bank account and you have a family of three, and you are not willing or in a position to put in the work to learn a
Mm.
skill, right? Then no, hold on to that money and pray to God because you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Like honestly, that is not everything is for everyone, right? But if you are in a position where you can invest in yourself, where this is not gonna take away the money of your family to survive or anything like that, or even if you're young and or whatever, you're single, and if you die because you're starving all by yourself, but you still give it a shot, that's still good. Life is about taking action. It's not about taking risk. It's about taking
Mm.
I don't know how to say the word in English, but it's basically to take risk that you can measure.
A calculated risk.
Yes. What did you
Mm.
say?
Calculated risk.
Yeah, exactly. Calculated risk, right? Yes, having a lot of faith, but I'm going to say that faith is also very misunderstood. Faith means that you put action. Faith doesn't mean sit down and pray and things are gonna go well. No, no. Faith means like I believe in what I cannot yet see,
Mm.
right? But I'm still gonna do it. And you have to put in the faith that you're gonna do it and it's gonna happen because you've seen other people do it and they're not extraordinary people. They're just like you, but they put in the work. So
Yeah.
I hope it helps.
No, and I love that you took it a step back to like give that context, because I think that's what a lot of we'll say, like, I wouldn't say fake testimonials, but you've seen them out there where people are like, oh yeah, put your last, put all of your money and get a credit card and put out like just all this stuff of like, you need to do it. There's no other option. It's like, it's not that. It's like, it's going to be different for each and every person based on your own circumstances. Like, it's not going to be a cut and
Right.
dry thing for everyone.
No, this is ethical, right? Like we're trying to run an ethical business, not an unethical business. Like all the people that put their money in crypto stuff, like literally, I mean, that is what I'm talking about when I say risk, stupid risk, gambling
Mm.
risk. It's totally not up to you. When you're learning a skill, it's totally up to you. I mean, not totally, because if you're buying a class, a course or whatever, then it's also part of that success that you need to rely on to actually become really good at something. But there's more in your side on your side that you can control than just crypto. The problem is that, again, people want fast money. People don't want to work for that money. People hope that the market goes up, or they're hoping for an unrealistic miracle. they're
Mm.
they're they're literally having too much faith of like, hey, yeah, God's gonna come and help me and change the market or something.
Yeah.
Faith doesn't mean that. Faith means being able to do things in a position where you want to be, and just knowing that you're not there yet, but if you keep taking action, it can happen for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding that context there. So the last question, and so this is assuming that, okay, you had that first conversation with someone that's, like, should I invest, should I not? Now you're talking to the one that's like, okay, I think this is going to be a good calculated risk for me, but I've been burned in the past by other programs. Is this going to work? Like, what would you say to someone that's on the fence about jumping into RCA?
In defense about, okay, so if we're comparing it to other programs, um, this is more like a personal perspective, just because I've done so much due diligence, right? As an attorney, as an entrepreneur. But I would say, again, this is just Tasha's experience, right? Is like, I have not really seen other programs like RCA. Okay. Neither I need to. That's the cool thing I like about this program, right? Because sometimes you find something and you're like still shopping around because it just doesn't really meet your needs. What I've seen here is that it really does, to any level of people. Even if you're really advanced, you guys have it all, because after RCA, you're also connecting people with, like, if you're super talented, you have a job for them, right? So if you're in the fence of doing it, I would say you're gonna lose more money and more time by going out there and still shopping around. Like you're always gonna be doing that, and you just have to understand that this is great. I would say good enough, but no, it's actually great, and it will provide the support that you need if you put in the time and if you come to the community. Honestly, I'm not the best at always reaching out, but if you do, there is a community for you, right? Like right here, I'm with you, I'm sharing with everybody. So do it, because if you are committed, RCA is the other percentage that you need. I know, maybe let me talk about the Pareto law. I don't know if everybody's familiar with Pareto, but Pareto says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort, right? Mm-hmm. And it applies in many different situations. And I think that's what RCA is. It's RCA is that 20% that can allow you to have 80% results. So put the pressure on the system, take it off from you, and go for it.
Amazing. Tash, thank you so much for spending, we've been talking for almost an hour. So I told you 30 minutes and it felt like it was, 15 because you're dropping a lot of really good stuff here. So first of all, I just want to say, appreciate you coming on and spending the time with us here. And, any like last parting words, like anything you would say to someone or anything that's on your mind that you want to throw out there?
Reach out to people. Every journey is different. Entrepreneurship is hard. Sales is hard. It's worth it. You are in a position to change people's lives. And I just want to share with people my definition of sales. A salesperson is a very educated facilitator of somebody else to make an educated decision. You're not pushing anybody. You're not forcing anybody. We're all adults here. So we're just facilitating that decision. So, and I think actually I want to bring up one concept that Cole uses, which is healthy stress, right? Like, let's be honest, we're not ready to make decisions. There's so many that we make every single day that we're burned out of making decisions. So as a salesperson, you're there literally as a support to help this person, instead of doing all these crazy due diligence, to help them understand if your product or service can actually serve them, how, and facilitate that. And that is what a great salesperson is.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I think, back, even one of the very first things that you said of, the connotation of the word salesperson or salesman, right? It's, a lot of people when I've even made a video about this, because I think it's such an important concept of, people always think of salesmen and they compare it or what's the word? They, put it with, the used car salesman, right? This like very negative, like connotation concept of the word sales. So, thank you for giving that definition. I think we'll have to put that on a t-shirt. I think it was really good. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out here, Tasha. Once again, thank you for hanging out with us. And if you're listening on YouTube, on the podcast apps, anything like that, down in the show notes in the description of this episode, we'll have just a full-on video that Cole breaks down. It's about 16, 17 minutes that breaks a little bit more down of remote closing, what it is, how you can get more involved with the industry. It's not a sales video. At the end of it, out of full disclosure, if you want to learn more about what it is like to work with us and at RCA, then there is a link to learn a little bit more about there. But the video itself is very much so just a 15-20 minute video of Cole breaking down his process. So click down in the show notes in the description, check that out, and also make sure to follow us on YouTube or on the podcast apps to get more content just like this. So anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Peace.